in your article, which I loved, Down But Not Out, you've spoken about the impact of the pandemic. Why do you think there is an increased need for more conversations around mental health, not just for women, but for everyone?
Thank you, Jyotika. Thank you, Astha. I'm absolutely delighted to be here, because we started this, when you introduced me earlier, you spoke about my book, Why I Failed. When I wrote the book 7 years ago, Abhinav was one of the few people who agreed to talk to me on the importance of failure. I started out with a list of 20, 25 people that I wanted to feature in the book. And only about 16 agreed. And a lot of them, in fact, even told me that why are you choosing a topic like failure as your first book? So that was the stigma around difficult conversations. And I really enjoyed listening to Monica ma'am. It's so heartening to know that schools are being so progressive, because when I went to school, failure was a taboo word. We were geared towards thinking that medals and winning competitions is the step towards recognition and happiness, right? So for me personally, I feel very happy that we are having a conversation like this. And I'm a parent of a 7-year-old. So the pandemic has played out very differently, and none of us expected this year to turn out the way it's turned out. 2020 began with big plans. In fact, even in the magazine, as the cover for our 2020, our first January issue, we had Narendra Modi looking through the binoculars, and a beautiful India and a very high-tech world is what he saw. And I was just going for that issue yesterday on what all of us expected and how things have just completely turned, right? So, but the one good thing that's come out of the pandemic is that it has helped us center ourselves a lot. And I think it has helped us reassess our priorities. And if it wasn't for the pandemic, I think a conversation like what we are having today, or a lot of other conversations that are happening around the need to take care of your mind, wouldn't have happened. So I think that's very, very crucial, right? And accessibility comes after you've given a language to what people experience. I personally am very, I write on economy, but I personally am very invested in this field, because I just feel that, as a nation, we tend to stay away from uncomfortable conversations, right? We don't want to talk about somebody who's going through an emotional or a mental health crisis. I mean, there is no language for it, right? So this is helping a lot of us recognize that, okay, if you feel a certain way, it's okay not to be okay, right? So coming to your question about the article I wrote and the fallout of COVID-19. Now, of course, the economy has taken a huge beating, and that's putting it mildly. We are experiencing a turbulent time. I mean, we've not witnessed a time like this since the Great Depression. From my generation, your generation, in fact, even Astha's generation, or Abhinav, or so many of the panelists here, we've never experienced a time like this, right? I know of so many people who've lost their jobs in the last few months. Salary cuts have become normal, right? So it is taking a toll on us emotionally, mentally. It's making us reevaluate our self-esteem. And the impact of this pandemic goes a lot beyond the economic impact of it. And we are seeing that, we are witnessing that. Suicide cases have gone up. I reported on a story where there was a young couple. The husband was working in an IT firm. He lost his job. The husband and the wife committed suicide, and their child was left behind. It was reported very widely. It happened in Ghaziabad. They had a little toddler. The toddler is being taken care of now by the grandparents. So these stories are not uncommon, right? And I think, when I say that the pandemic has helped us center ourselves, I think it has helped us evaluate what is really important for us. And I do hope that going forward, we will not chase success the way we have chased it. We will not question ourselves and doubt ourselves if we do not meet our benchmarks of success the way we did before February 2020, right? So I think the reset button is very, very important. I quite agreed and quite liked, in fact, with, when Abhinav, somebody like an Abhinav Bindra, who's, done the country proud, says this, because I think when somebody who's actually achieved it at the highest level says it, it just carries so much weight. I want to talk about, how this pandemic has weighed on men, of course, but more so on women, because we don't talk about that enough, right? Um, there are enough studies to show that COVID-19 and with COVID-19 and with so many women, especially women working from home, they are likely to lose out on their promotions. They are likely to get a setback in their career cycles by a few years. And there is a lot of concern and a lot of debate and conversation now, especially in the Western world, on how the pandemic is actually going to undo the progress that was made in the area of women empowerment by at least a decade, if not more. Because the fact is, the women are experiencing double burden, right? Earlier we would go to work, we would work in the office and come back, but now we are doing everything all the time. I'll give you my personal example. Thankfully I have help at home, but still I have been waking up at 4 in the morning to do my writing, because that requires a lot of concentration and it requires me to think, and I cannot do it when the whole house is awake and just buzzing, right? And I have a 7-year-old who has to log on for his classes. I have other responsibilities, so I have actually cut down on my sleep tremendously, so that I'm able to at least keep up with my colleagues at work and at least do my bit, right? And this is me, and I come from a position of privilege. Now imagine so many women in tier 2, tier 3 cities, even metro cities, who are trying to manage things without family support, without ecosystems in place, but they have EMIs to pay. They contribute equally to, family income and household expenses. And so the impact is enormous. And what happens is, we've seen this with our mothers and grandmothers, that whenever they would go through a crisis, like I said, that there was no vocabulary for this, right? So you would the older generation would just say that, don't worry about it, you're just going through something, forget it, just move on, right? And I think it's so important that we talk about these issues, so that uh, women do not feel alone. If you feel very tired to get out of bed, if you feel that you're not motivated enough to do your 100% every day, that anyways is an impossible ask, but we set ourselves, up to such high standards that we keep questioning and doubting ourselves. We go through imposter syndrome all the time. We feel that, oh my god, I've reached this position, do I really deserve it? Before the world questions us, we question ourselves. And the pandemic has only made that worse, because what happens is that not only are you being a full-time parent, you're being a part-time teacher to your child, you're being a full-time professional, you're also being a full-time housekeeper. It's just tremendous. I mean, just spelling it out is exhausting, right? So this double burden is having an impact on women. And I'm glad that we are having this conversation. We need to have many more such conversations, so that women do not feel that, that there is something wrong with them if they feel the need to just take a few days off, if they feel too overwhelmed, if they feel that, oh, I don't want anyone around me, I just want to be left alone. Because we tend to doubt ourselves so much, and we tend to question ourselves so much. So uh, it's, I think, with the pandemic, with COVID-19, it has had its negatives, but I personally feel that it depends on perspective, on how you look at it. And I feel that the fact that we are actually pushing the narrative, pushing conversations where it's okay to speak about that, oh, I feel so low, I feel so depressed that I might want to, I mean, I have thought about, contemplated about ending my life, things like that. Like, I've had friends who've reached out to me and friends I've known for many, many years, and who've told me that, you know what, I have been suffering from depression, and this has just aggravated what I have been feeling. So as a media professional, I feel that we also need to tailor our content now to be able to meet this need for positivity and inspiration. What's happened is that, there's a certain format that big media has followed. In the last 2 to 3 decades, we feel that the nation is obsessed with politics and sports. All those things are very important, of course. But now I increasingly feel the need that the media needs to reinvent its role as well, and to be, to play a more positive and constructive role, to build conversations like this, to put out more inspiration and to put out more positivity. Because the fact is that the world is different now from what it was, and it's not going back to what it was, because that anyways was an extremely stressful state, right? That all of us were constantly running in this rat race, and suddenly nature has exploded and it's told us that, hey, come back in, rein yourself in, and reconsider where you're headed. And I feel that media needs to reassess their priorities in the kind of stories we put out, the kind of content we put out, and the kind of messaging we are giving out.
Thank you so much, Shweta, for that. Very, very, you actually speak for me and for so many women out there. We need to change the narrative. It's time that we all realize that COVID has really stirred the pot for all of us. And we need to talk about hope, happiness, gratitude, and well being. And I love what you said. As a parent, we need to all learn to celebrate even our failures. I need to model that for our children because they will follow our example.